Welcome back to episode 3 in this series, talking through the whole process of creating and crafting what I think is going to be a 3-track to 5-track EP. In the last episode, if you haven't already seen it, I took a piano chord progression that I found that I'd written, I think about 6 months ago, developed upon that to come up with just a general idea. And in this episode, I'm going to try and take that idea even further and develop it into a fully arranged song, maybe not fully finished, but pretty close to a finished product. So let's just jump into this project and pick up where we left off in the last episode. Now in episode 2 in this series, I recorded some bass and some guitars, added in some really simple drums, and we ended up with a loop that sounded a bit like this. And honestly, it's been sitting with me for the past 2 weeks that I don't really love how these guitars sounded. Now yesterday I was working on a separate project and got in a bit of a groove with my guitar playing, and I did actually end up recording another guitar part. And now this loop looks a little different. It's extended. I've got a new guitar melody at the bottom here. Now I know I said I was going to bring you guys along for the whole ride. Honestly, I didn't have my camera set up and I was just in the rhythm and feeling what I was playing on the guitar. And so I wrote this new guitar part that I think fits a little bit nicer. I did like the original guitar part and I'm going to keep it there just in case I want to come back to it. But I think for now, I'm just going to focus on these two guitar parts. So we've got this ARP and then this new guitar part. So the first thing I'm going to do today is just start processing these guitars. At the moment, they're a little quiet in the mix and they're dry signal. So let's start with this melody. So I'm just going to start with an EQ and see if there's anywhere that we need to boost or there's anything we need to cut out. Raise those mids and highs a little bit. Just going to add a little bit of compression. I'm going to use the mastering warm preset from the TDR Kotelnikov. Probably aim for like somewhere between 3 to 5 dBs of gain reduction here. And we'll put 5 dB back onto the out gain just to make up for any compression. Raise that volume a little bit. Now let's add some reverb to just give it a little bit more life. Gonna load up Valhalla Supermassive, which is my go-to reverb for all guitars. And then I'm gonna chuck on this long reverb and let's just see how that sounds. Now I'm gonna add an ozone imager. And it's just gonna add a little bit of width and a little bit of stereo. Make it really wide. I just want to make that a little bit louder as well. So I'm just going to add a limiter and up the gain by 2 or 3 dB. Right, now let's start processing that ARP. Drag that into my mixer and pretty much do a similar thing. So we're going to EQ it first. Raise those highs. Let's add a little bit of compression. Let's add some reverb onto that ARP to kind of wash it out a bit. And now that I'm listening to it, I'm hearing a frequency in that ARP that I'm not really liking. There it is. Then finally for this one, what I'm going to add is Pancake 2 to add some auto panning, and let's speed that up. no, let's put that back to 2 bars. I just realized that the tracks that I had for these 2 guitars were actually frozen, completely dry. They weren't running through any of my normal recording chain at all. So I've just grabbed the original files, put them back through my recording chain, flattened them, and now I've got proper guitar recordings. Okay, cool. So now we've actually got guitars that are processed using the correct chains and sounding pretty nice. But quite a few things happening in this original pattern here. So I'm going to split that by channel, start getting organized in this project. I'm going to do is grab everything, shift it over about 4 bars, and then we can start working on like an intro to this song. I'm probably going to start with the chords and maybe this guitar, maybe fade that in. Bring that drone in as well. I'm thinking maybe for the intro, we also drop in like a Foley loop or something. I think I know sort of what I want to go for. So I just got this shaker loop that I found in this Mondo Loops Dreamy Lo-Fi pack. We get this to fit the BPM. So we're on 50 BPM. So let's make that a little bit longer. EQ it. I think I want to make it a little bit darker. Let's form and shift it down a little bit. Maybe we need to find something a little bit faster. So just layered in this tambourine loop as well. And they kind of work together, so you get the shaker loop that hits every bar, and then you've got like the tambourine in the background. And I'm going to form and shift that tambourine down as well. I want to write another piano part, probably just something really simple, but let's try and come up with a little mini piano melody that's going to sit here as well. So let's drop in another original cinematic piano and start writing, trying to write some sort of melody. Right, let's tidy that up a little bit. Then maybe what we'll do is put that piano in the intro as well, but this time drop it down an octave. Let's see how that sounds. Now let's automate that so it fades in with the intro. I'm going to do that by adding Fruity Limiter, creating an automation clip on the gain, and then just automating that so that it fades in for those first few bars. So you can't really hear it. And then here it comes. Right, so now let's start thinking about arrangement. I've just cut out that guitar up for the last 4 bars of the guitar melody, bring our piano melody back in for those. Perhaps maybe we'll bring that back a little bit later on. Let's keep our chords going and think about how we can keep things moving here. So maybe we need to keep the guitar going but cut more of that piano out there. Cut the kick out here. Then we're going to have that Foley loops coming in again in this bridge section, kind of like a callback to that intro. And then here what I might do is change the piano, different piano melody that comes in here that sort of plays along with the guitar. Not really feeling that, to be honest. Let's have a look at some of those other guitars though. We can see how this one sounds if we add it in for that second drop. Yeah, I like the way that one's sounding. So let's take that out there. We'll have just that one in for this final part. Or maybe we could actually bring that in a bit earlier in the bridge there. We need to tidy up the playing on that guitar part. Tighten it up a little bit, so we'll re-record that. Nice, so now this is sounding much more like a fully fleshed out track. Still some work to be done. I know that I need to re-record this guitar that comes in the bridge, and we definitely need something else that's going to go on in that final section there. So I think what I might do is go away, tinker away with it and see what I can come up with, and then I'll come back when I figured out what to put in there, and I will see you guys then. Alright, so I'm back. I figured it out. This is going to be a relatively sleepy track after all, so I just needed to add some more layering, some more ambience in. So I'm going to show you what I added. And it's not loads, but I think it really uplifts the track to another level. So if you remember, the track was sounding like this. Super nice, but I think it's just lacking a little something, a little more flavor. I started off by adding this piano soundscapes pattern. And all this is a couple of notes from the chords. It's a vital preset that essentially plays a randomized octave for every note on the piano, kind of at like a random time within a sample that's preloaded. Turn that up in the mix. So it's really sparse, but it just kind of sits in the background of the track. The next thing that I added was these vocals. And this is actually a really cool new plugin that I picked up. And it's a Contact plugin called Fever Dreams. And this was actually sent to me by the creator of Fever Dreams. They wanted me to test it out. And this plugin is insane. There is literally hundreds of presets, hundreds of different sounds, and honestly there's just so much you can do with it. You can actually load up 2 of the different samples at one time and play them both concurrently, You can do these kind of like really lush soundscapes with these in the background of your tracks. So if I just check out this pattern here, you'll see that it's only playing 3 notes, but it just adds this whole new dynamic to the second half of the track. And so on the actual sample, I've got an EQ, just rolling off all of the lows. I've got delay because I wanted it to be this really huge kind of ethereal sound. I've got Solaris adding just a ton of reverb. There's actually only about 30% dry signal coming through. It's mostly reverb. And then I've got Pancake 2 automating some panning from left to right just to sweep across. This whole thing will move from left on the first note, and then it will end in the right headphone on the last note, and it just adds this really nice dynamic to the bridge and then the final ending point. Then I added the piano back in to the final 8 bars, and so now everything all together sounds like this. And there's definitely still some extra final tweaks to make to this, but overall I'm like super happy with how this has ended up, and I think this track is going to sit nicely within this project. And I really thought I was going to have to add another melody to this track, but it turns out what I need to do is keep building the ambience and keep adding those like really simple layers, and piece by piece the track came together. And I think that's a lesson that I'm going to take into the next track in this project. Just kind of stick with it and not get too focused on the big sounds, not get too focused on making sure that I'm adding tons and tons of different melodic elements, because sometimes just adding a background vocal or a little kind of ambient ear candy twinkle in the headphones can really make the difference in a track like this. If you haven't already watched the first 2 parts of this series, you can click on either of the videos that are on screen right now, and you can watch this whole thing as a playlist and join me as I'm building this project.